Now, when we're doing this, though, there's no editing, right?
Right.
All right.
We'll try it 1 week and see how it goes.
Yeah. Are we on there now?
All right. So we're on a 5-second delay. So if all of a sudden we get disconnected, I yanked the plug on us. All right. All right. So let me get a picture of this. All right. So what's going on today? Oh, did you get another little Debbie snack cake? Did you get the Nutty Bar? Nice. Dude, you want to talk about filling your mouth up for a while.
It's good stuff.
Can't go wrong. What's your favorite little Debbie cake?
Nutty Bar.
Nutty Bar?
I like to take each section apart, lick
You
off the
pull 'em
peanut
apart?
butter. I do, every part. I also sometimes like to make the ultimate ice cream sandwich by smearing, taking it apart and smearing Vanilla Briar's ice cream in between each of those layers.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's some showmanship.
Next level. Next level.
And you know what my shirt says? Because I try to wear a shirt with a positive message, inspiring message every week.
Get over your fear of heights.
You're next level, baby. You're not
Mine
afraid
ain't-
of heights.
Hey, not at all, because I'm Piedmont Airlines.
Piedmont Piedmont Airlines, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, is the home of Piedmont Airlines, which was later bought out by U.S. Air, later purchased by U.S. Airways.
It's funny
purchased
how
by
long
American
my
Airlines.
torso is. Like you can see all of yours pretty much. Mine, I gotta tilt this way
You get-
down.
You like the panoramic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we on live?
We are live.
Oh, cool. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, friend. How's your Saturday morning?
It's early for me. I haven't been up all that long. Took a bath. That's why my hair is wet. Got some reading done. I'm a bath reader. That's what I like to do. People are like, "When do you read?" And I'm like,
How much reading can you do in the bathtub before you're like waterlogged?
"Me?
Or does the waterlog piece not even a factor?
No. The bath was the place I could go to escape my family when I was young. I would literally just put my head in the water, fill it up so I couldn't hear anything.
So everything sounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I learned to actually, that's why I took pretty easy to meditation because I mean, if you have a hard time with that, you might want to try that. Just fill up the bathtub and submerge your head, and you'll be able to hear your breath really easily.
Or not your breath. You can hear your heart. If
Well,
you hear
no.
your breath underwater,
I don't. No, I would leave my. I would leave my mouth, the top of my face up. Just my ears would be. Whatever.
and
I'm
no,
a
you're not doing
survivor.
it. You're not doing that while you're reading. I hope
No,
that's not part of the reading.
That's a different thing.
And if you're reading in the bathtub, are you reading with paper books, or are you
Both.
doing this with your iPad?
Both, but usually my iPad.
Have you ever dropped it in the tub?
Nope, I have not.
And
Why would you say that? Why would you jinx me?
We've known each
Why
other for
would you
30
do that?
years, and your hands are wet from being in the water.
No, they're not wet.
You've kept your hands. You've managed to get in the tub. Your
Steve,
hands have stayed out.
Steve, I'm a big man. That I've got a huge garden tub, but it doesn't work that way for me.
Or is it that you keep the iPad on the side of outside of the tub? You get in, dry your hands off.
Nope.
So your hands are good and dry. Then you reach over.
Well, sometimes
Your hands have stayed dried the entire time while you're getting in. That's amazing.
It's not that difficult.
No, I think about it because there's been times that I've like, oh, my back's hurting. I'm going to take a hot bath.
Yeah,
I'm going to set my
I got a
phone or iPad on the side of the tub.
I have an Epsom salt bar.
An Epsom's, oh, like a
I got eucalyptus. I've got lavender. I've
you have
got
a
Himalayan pink salt. I've got charcoal. I got the gambit.
wow. And so you'll read what, an hour in the tub?
Or 3.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, there are times where I have to go through 3 cycles
3 cycles.
of water.
Like, you completely drain the tub and fill it back up while you're sitting in it? Because I was going to say the water has to get like lukewarm.
Yeah.
And you know what lukewarm water is like?
I'm
Like you'll get
pretty
heat out of your mouth.
I'm pretty dang sure if anyone is listening, they didn't tune in to hear about my bath habits.
But all these questions, I think the thing that I kind of assume, the role that I assume on this podcast is people who would listen to you have questions when they hear you talk, like, no, no, no. And they want to say, pause, go back, but they've been taught throughout their childhood not to interrupt. And I'm an interrupter. Kilo, my wife will.
Yeah, you've always been an interrupter.
I like to say a disruptor, but no, I'll go with interrupter.
I like both.
Hey, time out. Go back. Yeah. You said you read in the so I want to ask the questions.
Now I will say this: the first time I got my Kindle Mini, right? So okay. I have a Kindle Mini. That makes it easier, right? But my hand is so big, and my iPad was so small. I bought it, and we went on a.
Is that when you did your trip to Bali?
We did no. I forget where we were, but I was in a hot tub like hours that week. I had jacked up my back so bad, and I was in a hot tub. So I literally extended. It was just beyond my grip. I had to extend this a little more to hold it in one hand and read. And I had tennis elbow and a forearm.
Oh, no doubt.
I did that for like 4 days straight. And then like the next week, I'm like, what is going on with my arm? And that was it, the tendon that ran through it or something. And it took me 6-8 months to get over that. So I had a reading hot tub injury.
That's go to the athletic trainer, the PT, and they're like, so what are you here for? How did you do this?
I said, I'm reading. Where? In a hot tub. Huh? Yeah.
That
was the actual conversation.
All right. And one last question on this line. How many books do you have in your Kindle account?
You want me to look?
Yeah. I would take a guess and people would start screaming, no, there's no way. And then people who know you.
Oh, don't
been in your house.
Don't take a crazy guess. No. Hang on. Let me see here.
Because this does not include the number of, now everything that you have in paperback, you don't have on the Kindle. So you have.
No, I probably have. I've got some books I have in both.
Right.
I'd say right now between this office, my office at the house, my office at Florida? The school, and the garage in Florida, I would say I have around 5,000 hard copies.
And that is the most conservative estimate I've ever heard of your book collection.
Maybe.
Because I think when you had the bookshelves, this guy had a 15-foot wall, floor to ceiling, in his living room was the height of his ceiling. Matt had, and he and Nicole had custom bookshelves done for his collection. And I would dare say that there were 5,000 on those shelves alone, not to mention.
Nah, I would say there was
office.
there's about 3 on that shelf.
Yeah. I'm within the.
Because we had that cut out in the middle for my desk.
Oh, that's right. Forgot about that.
I'm trying to find out how many. Where does it say how many I have? I know the last time I looked, it was
8,000.
No, nowhere near that. Last time I looked, it was somewhere around 4.
Wow. So total combined volumes, you're somewhere between 5 and 10,000 books.
Yeah.
Nice.
Umberto
you-
Eco
you-
has a wonderful essay. He was an Italian essayist. I
Okay.
think I've mentioned him before. I used to keep this copy in my office when people would ask me this question. I just had copies ran off, but it was the anti-library and the case for the anti-library. But it was basically what's more important is the books you own that you haven't read than the books that you have read.
Which is more important? That's the question.
The most important, he said, was books that you own that you have not read.
Mm. Oh, okay. Get it. I got it now.
It shows your
One
interest,
that
your
you have not.
curiosity, where you want to be. It gives
Mm.
you the opportunity for them to speak to you at some point, and you pluck them off the shelf and then find you. Yeah. So when people would always ask, "Have you read them all?"
Right.
There's no way. I buy them faster than I can read them. And for those people, I buy. So here's a little hint. I am bipolar, and part of a bipolar's mood swings, often when you move to the manic, is you can be known to make some reckless purchases. So as Steve and I have chronicled, what I learned very early on to do was to funnel that into used bookstores and to thrift stores for their book sections. So I can satisfy my manic phase through shopping in a used bookstore and walk away with something of substance that I can keep or sell or give away. And that's how I've kind of coped with that. So that is my addiction. It's books.
And the post this week on Whistle Pig and the Bear Instagram
Right.
was probably the smallest, most compact.
God almighty.
Keela saw. There's this moment. I posted a video on Whistle Pig and the Bear Instagram, and there's a moment where you go down this aisle, and the aisle is so tight that you had to turn sideways.
And I was
because
still
shoulder to
brushing
shoulder.
both
And you're
sides.
still brushing both sides. And you turn and look at me because I'm recording on the phone, and you just sigh.
Well, the problem is I have a fear of small spaces. I'm a large man, but I love books.
But you're a bibliophile. Yeah.
My God, I felt like that was my womb. Like that was my ethereal, metaphysical, metaphorical womb.
Yeah.
And I was torn in every which way. I wanted to get out, run out, and I wanted to just nestle into a little ball and lay there.
Yeah.
Both.
No, it was the perfect. What would you call that? The
I would dare say that quite a few of our listeners have a book or books on their shelf with my name on it.
that you've given them, not because they stole them,
Right. Well,
or they may have stolen them.
yeah, but
Permanently borrowed.
usually given. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So this week we've over the weeks of doing this, we're on. I think this is conversation 12
right?
now. Yeah. And so with that, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, started seeing an uptick in the number of messages that you and I are receiving,
Right.
from folks who listen, friends who listen, just sharing their own experiences, and even starting to make requests on, hey, can you help me process this? And so know that we're reading those and looking at those and how we can discuss those here in a way that would hopefully be helpful. But yeah.
Yeah, that's been encouraging. I mean, again, the point of this podcast is to honor our friendship and to invite other people into it.
Yeah.
It's the world where folks are having a difficult time hanging on to friends, especially if they have different takes on different things, different opinions, be it religion, politics, whatever.
COVID.
Yeah. And yeah, And
Sports, UNC versus Duke. That's tonight.
yeah, you know what I have to say to that? Roll Tide.
Roll, yeah, irrelevant in basketball.
I love
Doesn't
basketball.
matter. Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing is the I think a description I used a few weeks ago in talking with a counselor friend was at times it feels like that you're on an island
Hmm.
as you arrive at some of the and is the language that you use deconstruction. I mean, that sounds so it feels like a negative connotation to me.
It's
Not that
not
there's
because it's one step in a process.
great. I like that.
There's construction, so then there's deconstruction, so you're going to have reconstruction, or what Walter Brueggemann calls in his theology of the Psalms. I think it's him who says that you go through orientation, uh, disorientation, new orientation. Brian McLaren calls it.
I was going to say, what about what McLaren's? I love McLaren's language on it.
McLaren calls it simplicity, complexity, perplexity, and harmony.
Hmm.
So
So,
It- this
if
is
you're, if
this
you're
is
in
not
that, what phase are you in on the McLaren language? You would
well.
be at the complexity.
What I like about McLaren is McLaren just continues to say it, so it's an ever widening circle. You just keep looping
Hmm.
over and over, but each loop gives you a larger worldview, a more expansive. So you go from a simple melody to a harmony, and then as you hopefully keep going, it turns into an orchestration, so to
Got it.
speak, to a point where it becomes very sweeping. And what I like about that terminology is once it gets to that um, orchestration, that kind of symphonic piece, you can enjoy the whole thing, but you can also go back in and look at this horn line, or you can check out these woodwinds, or you can listen to the rhythm and you can focus in, but then that's not it. You can zoom back out again.
Right.
Um,
I know for me and some of the comments that we've received is I'm describing that. Okay, so you're going through those phases.
it's Diet
And
Mountain Dew.
diet,
This is
red Solo cup.
it's a little
You can see
early
it
for
on the
me.
audio.
Okay, just saying it.
I didn't know you still drank Diet Mountain Dew. Figured you'd switch to Sundrop. But anyway, as that circle begins to shift, like you're going through this and you're moving through it. You're not static in it. You're progressing on, and your social circles, your community begins to change.
Yeah,
Sometimes by choice, sometimes not by choice.
usually a
so
combination. Both.
Combination, right? So maybe you're getting new community, but that's a difficult. You and I talked about this last Sunday, in that if you're accustomed to this is when you experience the community, or this is how you experience the community, and then that changes. It's not like you planned that. It's not like, and so all of a sudden you wake up and you realize that's changed.
Sometimes you don't realize it's changed, and then you get a tweet, or you get a message, or you get a phone call, and then yeah, you're it's no longer us, it's now you are them.
Hmm.
I don't tend to try to exclude anyone. My goal is to hang on to relationships as long as I can, even if they're not particularly healthy for my emotional space. I can set boundaries, but I don't like to cut those off. And I have at times, but the moment, just because I feel like I've been forced to, but I don't want to other anyone, and I don't want to dehumanize anyone by cutting them off. And I want to remember that I've continually been emerging and evolving. And, you know, sometimes emerging or evolving means you move to a branch that you're going to have to retreat from because it was a wrong branch. You knew you couldn't stay where you were.
Right.
So you move out in this way only to realize that it's a dead end, or it can't support your thought or your belief or your love or your yourself with integrity. And so you have to return back to the trunk for a minute, realizing you're going to have to move to another branch. And so I
I mean,
try
I
to
think
I try to hold that space for everyone, because I certainly don't have it all together, and I certainly love certain aspects of my life from before and learn from them, again, transcend and include. But you're not always able to do that, because relationships are a two-way street.
and there's a piece of if you're being othered, your choice to transcend and include, does it matter if you're being othered, right? Like you're still open, but the people that you were once close with or once, in community with aren't open. Like I can still remain open, but only to the level that they're willing to engage. So I guess like I think back to your experience when you moved to North Carolina,
Yeah.
right? Like you made a decision, and you had been experiencing and were well known and respected and sought out.
In a small circle, but yeah.
But I'm saying, regardless of whether it was a small, medium, or large circle, you had a place in that community, right?
Yeah. And I went to being a bartender at a brand new
At an upstart
tavern.
brewery, yeah.
Yeah.
And so immediately the circle, the community that you were accustomed to experiencing on a daily basis for 20 years, all of a sudden that drastically changes. I'm not trying to do therapy with you, but that's an example that you can speak to, you know, that you made a shift.
Yeah, and when you make the shift, you have to realize you're the one changing, the other folks aren't.
Mm-hmm.
So, my father-in-law said to me for a little while, "You left us. I feel like you left us." Well, I was the same me he met, and that I was, as a young guy, trying to grow and move, and I wasn't going to stay the same. And I didn't leave them in the way that I loved or lived, by and large, but I did leave them. And I have to hold space for that. I have to recognize not everybody's journey is the same, and nor will it be, nor should it be. Um, and I can't. It's not that I'm trying to proselytize everyone to my new way of being. It's just simply I've got to be faithful to who I am, so that I can live with congruence and integrity and continue to be the person that I want to be. And again, I'm far from perfect. God, I'm downright shitty a lot of the time. But
I'll give
um,
you an 8 on a scale from 1 to 10.
but I'm trying most of
Yeah.
the time. And so anyway, I know that there are folks out there and they're talking to us and they're going through a deconstruction phase or a complexity, perplexity piece, and they're trying to figure out what the hell to do. And they feel like um, people are leaving them, or people turn their back on them, or why can't these people get it, or what have you. And all I'm going to say is there is no enlightenment. There, there is no true enlightenment
Yeah.
that causes you not to love. If it's not growing your ability to love, okay, and I mean the real deal, and love is messy, then you really need to make sure that you're on the right path. It can cause disturbances, it can cause disruptions, it can put a serious kink in the water hose of your relationship. But if you and in your own pain and discomfort, it can you can be irritable and lash out and all those the kind of pieces. But if it long term is causing you to love less, not sure that it's trending in the right direction,
But
and that needs to
don't you
be
think, like,
done
when
better.
you say, when you offer that reminder, I would say a reminder more so than a word of caution, when you're saying make sure you're on the right path. I think that's the biggest question hanging over your head when you go through that
Sure,
process,
of course it is.
right? Of what if I'm wrong?
Right.
Right? And then but you know that what you're feeling and experiencing is the most real or most alive that you felt or connected with Christ, that you're feeling the most alive, connected with the universe, whatever that is for you. And let me throw the disclaimer out. Yes, I love Jesus. I follow Christ. I'm there. But I want to say to people who the moment that I go that language, that they tune out, because I'm watching people, especially people as they message us, who go, "Man, I used to find this in the church, and whatever happened with COVID was a maybe a realization for them or a moment." Or there are people listening who have messaged us who are on staff at a church, and they're going, "I don't know." They're starting on that deconstruction trail, right? And so there's a fear of the unknown there. What if I? What's the language that's always used? Oh, it's a slippery slope. Don't get near the edge, and don't pull on that thread. And so I guess when you're saying, when you say, make sure you're on the right path, that's the scariest part of it, or
Of
one of the
course.
scariest parts
Of course
is,
it is.
how do I know I'm on the right path? And to me, like, the first thought that goes through my mind is, if you were static and fixed before, and it had been the same for 20 years or the same for however long it's been the same, and you're starting to experience movement, because to me movement represents life, right?
Hmm.
Then I think you're I want to say you're okay.
Yeah, I want. Let me say this though. I am a big proponent of feelings. I
Mhm.
think it's incredibly. What's the word? I think it's incredibly simplistic and reductionary, to hear the critique that you can't trust your feelings or you can't be about your feelings.
The heart's deceitful.
Heart's
We've heard that
deceitful, all
before.
that stuff. Coming from the Pentecostal realm, we're a people of the gut. We're a people of feelings. We're a people of intuition and discernment and understanding how something feels, right or wrong. To be faithful, you've got to be head, heart, and hands, right? You got to be all those things. And what I'm saying by that is, it can't be just about your thoughts, right? But it can't also be just about your feelings. It really has to be about your actions.
Hmm.
So if you're feeling loosey goosey and free and all these kind of pieces, and there's not, but your actions are hurting the people around you, in you're not conscious of that.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it is for freedom we've been made free, is what the scripture says. I used to hate that because I couldn't understand it. But what that means is, you don't just leave one captive place to entangle yourself in
You go to
another
another one.
captive
Yeah.
place. And so, while I don't believe that your heart is inherently deceitful, when in the way that that scripture has been taken, again, we don't understand the context behind the scriptures we read. That
Hmm.
particular piece, in many ways, was written for young men in their adolescence. And yes, when you're adolescent, you need to be careful with your feeling and your God, your all those things, your
Yeah.
desires. Um, but I'm just simply saying, you should still be growing in your in the dialects of love and in goodness and kindness and in patience and forbearance or long suffering and peace. And if long term those aren't happening, that's a sign to say something is out of equilibrium here. And of course, if you're in disorientation, of course, if you're in deconstruction, that may be there. But the point was never to deconstruct for
For
deconstruction's
the
sake.
sake, right, right.
The point is to deconstruct so that you can reconstruct. I mean,
And we've
right
seen people
after,
get
right
stuck in
at,
deconstruction.
yeah, one of the ways I like to really think about it is the nautilus. Okay,
Hmm.
the nautilus, that maritime animal, that sea creature, that shell that is an ever um, growing circle,
Hmm.
swirl. Okay, um, is
Spiral.
spiral. That's the word I was looking for. Is oftentimes the sign of spiritual direction or spiritual formation. It's also typically you find the golden mean, which is this really special ratio
Hmm. The
that
golden ratio.
goes along with that. But that creature, right, or sea creatures shed a shell, all right,
Hmm.
and they shed that shell, and it's a discomforting process. But they shed it because they're growing and they need more room.
Wow.
But before that shell grows back, oftentimes on different creatures, they're actually at their most vulnerable. They've left the safety and protection and support of that because they know they have to go to another bigger, more expansive protection and home. But in that meantime, after they've molted and before they can regenerate those pieces or find that next home, they're at their most vulnerable. And
Wow.
some of you are in that place right now. That's not to dissuade you from doing what you do. You can't stay in that cramped shell.
Right.
It'll choke you out. It'll end up killing you yourself. And you're stretching and you've left that and you feel exposed, you feel raw, you feel uncertain, you feel that's why it's important to not do this alone. That's why it's important to find a spiritual friend, to find a spiritual director, to find someone who can help you with that, who's been on the other side of it or has been through the process
Has been through.
enough
Yeah.
that they're at peace with how that goes and they're responsive, not reactionary, so that you can say, hey, I need to talk to my spouse about this, or hey, how do I talk to my pastor at church, or hey, how do I represent myself without people think I've lost it. You can't change people's feelings, but you can present yourself in a way that doesn't seem um, reactionary. Instead is here's the reasoning, here's the rationale, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I'm doing. So I'm just saying, continue to reach out to us. We'll help however we can, but there's loads and tons of other people out there. And if you're finding yourself, again, that's one reason why we need to get to work, Steve, on this gathering,
Yeah.
so that we can pivot and put some of these people in
In the same room.
communication and touch with
Yeah.
one another so that they know how to do this in community. I often did not have community in person with people who were going through what I was going through at the same pace.
Yeah.
But even then, I had you
Right.
and I had Nicole and I had others who
The
loved me through it.
the visual that I have is it's the okay, let me go. I'm trying to think of the proper scenario that doesn't sound as goofy. Almost as if you're on a journey, and we're on this journey together. And the visual that I have of you is you are this person who lived a mile ahead of the rest of us, in the sense of you were comfortable reading McLaren 20 years ago, you were comfortable with the sacred practices. You were you were comfortable with that, and then you would run back to the wagon train. Hey guys, let me tell you, and you're like, Lectio Divina, what? Right? And then you'd run back out to the place that you lived out front, but you were in close enough proximity that you had people to unpack it with. That, but you didn't live in either spot, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying be a yo-yo, but I think about the number of folks who have reached out to us over the years who were going through this in their head alone, and they didn't share it with their partner. They didn't share it with anyone, in their circle. And so then 3 years down the road, when they finally unpack it all, no one recognizes them. And you're not doing yourself, you're not respecting yourself or what you're going through enough to share it with someone, and you don't have to do it alone.
Right.
You shouldn't do it alone.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Take a sip of my iced coffee.
Steve Gallagher, for those of you who don't know, can make a drink from Starbucks last 48 hours.
And the ice stays somewhat
It's
intact.
just incredible. I will have been through 2 gallons of liquid before Steve has finished a mason jar of coffee.
Hey, it's also the way that if I ever go on my once every 3 or 5 year backpack camping trip, I'm the guy that it takes 3 times as long to get to the destination as it does everyone else. And a friend said to me once, I'd never met the guy until we went on this trip, and he goes, "You're more of a saunterer. You're not really a hiker." And I said, "Well, actually, my best friend Matt, that we've joked and called him a saunterer because that's how he goes through daily life. It's a saunter."
I actually have a Thoreau's Sauntering Club T-shirt that my friend John Quinnett, John's in his 80s, and we both like to wear it and sit in front of the coffee shop, and I listen to his stories. He listens to what I'm reading about. We have a good time.
That's good. Is that somebody in Bryson?
Yeah.
Cool.
John is one of the most fascinating human beings I've ever had the privilege of knowing.
Hey, we both have Johns that serve in a capacity like that for us.
Yeah. We had Mike's.
We had Mike's. Who else have we had? Cottons.
Cottons, yeah.
Yeah. Bedke's.
Grimes.
Yeah, Grimes was huge for me after working for a program called CMC. I was talking with, shout out to our friend Danielle Viator. Her and I were talking last week, and she celebrated her 40th birthday. Happy belated birthday.
There is no way I'm trying to be careful with my cursing now. There's no way in the damn world she's 40 years old.
I know, isn't that? I'm like, you're like still 28. What were we just saying? I lost it.
Shout out to our friend Daniel Viator, CMC, yo.
Oh, CMC, and she goes, and at this same time, Matt Turbetsky, who's down in Concord, Kannapolis area, he said, "You did CMC?" And I go, "Well, let's be clear, I wasn't a student in CMC." And he was like, "Oh, you were on the other side of the desk." I'm like, "I was only there for a year.
I'll never forget walking into a room with, and here's the deal, right? We're all complicated people with different sides. So I don't want to,
I can't wait to hear where this is going.
But we can call out and push out or push against behaviors or attitudes, right? Absolutely. For sure, without dehumanizing people. We can say you're dehumanizing yourself by engaging that. I'll never forget walking into Bolin, which was a building on the campus of Southeastern where we worked, and I came and there were 6 leaders, the leaders, and then the mid leaders, and then
the leaders.
the leaders
Okay.
there, and they were laughing, sharing some coffee and pastry, and they were just laughing. And I turned to the one lower rank leader,
Yes, they
and I
had
said,
ranks.
what are we talking about? What's so funny? And they're like, we're talking about our dark shadow and claw extending over the campus. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, you're joking on how other people are talking
Perceiving you.
about you. And they said, no, this is our goal.
Right.
I was like, what?
There was no shame when a student said to the leader that, "Hey, we're being viewed on campus as exclusive as all these things, right? Like
Higher than thou.
right,
And they would hear,
and they would say,
we
well,
are the elite. We're the
you are the
West
elite. That's what
Point.
it was, the
We're
elite.
the West Point of
And the
Christianity.
response was, "What do you think the other soldiers said to the cadets at West Point? What do you think that conversation looked like?" Well, of course, West Point was the elite of the elite, and that's who you are. You're the elite of the elite. And it was
Did
like,
any of those people
what?
go to West Point?
No.
Were any of them ever in the
If
military?
they had a West Point story. No, none of
Man,
them.
they love that
They loved
analogy.
and they
Listen,
loved the
man,
rank and file. That was
Christianity gets in trouble. Any religion gets in trouble when it starts using militaristic or warfare metaphors. If you find yourself continuously talking in those ways, then maybe Jesus is not your guy.
yeah. Jesus on the white horse with the sword.
Nope, not in his hand.
Sword by his side.
That's how we got in this trouble. Is
No,
this
I'm
image
thinking
of
of. I
Jesus
thought
on a
you were
white
telling the
horse?
story of "Yes, Lord, we will ride."
Oh, well, yeah.
Nana's bumper sticker. Yes,
No, I'm
Lord.
saying that whole Revelation piece where it says he's on the horse with all that stuff covered in blood. The sword's coming out of his mouth.
Okay,
He's not holding it. He's
uh,
not waging warfare.
that
He's
doesn't come as a
conquering.
picture though to hang on the wall.
No, it
Jesus with a
doesn't.
sword coming out of his mouth.
No.
So what's he doing with it?
It's the word of his testimony. I mean,
Okay.
it's the proclamation of the good news, which is dismantling the evil structures and hierarchies and powers of this world.
Yeah.
I mean, in the next vision, what is he? He's a slaughtered lamb. All right. The blood's not the blood of his enemies, it's his own blood. That's how Christ conquered death, and the and those pieces was not, I'm gonna deke them.
Yeah. No, and
I mean, we read the Bible like it's Mighty Ducks.
if you haven't started on a path of deconstruction, reconstruction, all of that's the piece that started me.
Well, and let me
That
just
was that incongruence of Christ the warrior versus, it was John Wayne Jesus.
well, and so if you really want a head start on some stuff, and it's good stuff, do I agree with everything? I don't agree with myself all the time. So no, of course not. But somebody that I've recommended to Steve that you've liked has been Keith Giles, Giles. And I saw a post of his yesterday that all of his Jesus
Unbound,
undefeated, all those things. I think there are 7 in that series. Are all for the rest of April. I think are 99 cents a piece on Kindle.
What?
So for less than $10, you can have the entire collection. And that would be worth learning to read on a Kindle device, which you can load onto your cell phone or onto your laptop.
I never read books on a device. I just because I'm the touch person, I like.
I get
but I read the Keith Giles, Unbound, and I forget the other one. And the thing is if you read them at the same time, you get. There's stuff that's in agreement, but you're like, which one was I in? So
Right.
Take them one at a time. They're an easy read.
Yeah, and again, and it's he cites the right people. He's not just coming up with this loosey goosey. Anyway,
no, and I think that, and we can say this, and maybe this is a shorter conversation than usual. That's okay. The piece though that I would say is I think back to that you running out ahead, right? What was so helpful for me was you had gone down what led you or what was compelling you were topics of inclusivity and those pieces. That was a piece for you.
Hmm.
For me, there was the piece of that incongruence of how did Jesus become how did we Americanize Jesus into the 5-star general, yada yada yada. That was the piece that started for me. And even though those were two separate topics or conversations or you know whatever, I was still able to unpack that with you, and I appreciate like that was a lifesaver for me, was being able to say to you, I don't know if what we were taught in this, and that's just been this slow ongoing journey, that saunter uh, for me, and I've seen the same with you, and that's when you're encouraging folks on here to do it with someone,
Hmm.
you've got to have those people, regardless of what led them to their path, having someone who's ventured out there or who's said, I think there's more to this, to the point that over the past couple of weeks we've talked about you praying the prayer, if there's more.
Yeah.
Those those are things that I think would be helpful for people to look for, be aware of,
Well,
and connect with.
let 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 me back up just a little bit though. Um, the the deconstruction that I went through to begin with, my initial deconstructions, all right, were came actually out of my studies of Christian history and of theology. Um, and as many of you guys know, I was
Well,
teaching it
you were
pretty
teaching
early
it,
on.
yeah.
So what happens is when you dig in to any kind of church history, you don't just see what's in that moment or what your tribe or denomination or clan has always taught. You see a largeness, and you see a time where Christianity as a whole has gone to a wrong branch
Mm.
or to a right branch. You can see all that. And then in theology, again, as I used to tell my students all the time, this textbook that we have only exists because we have 2,000 years or so of history of really brilliant people who call themselves Christian, say they're committed to God, love the Bible and the scriptures, and they all came to sometimes little differences, but often radical differences depending on time and context and place. And
Okay.
so before it was ever about, oh, these people are excluded or this or that, the foundation was just an
Yeah.
actual study of Orthodox Christianity through the years and a looking through the larger lens of Christianity as a whole, not just the Assemblies of God or Pentecostals or evangelicals. And once you get to that understanding and to that piece, you understand it's not the static, fixed thing that
Right.
you were taught in your individual church or denomination that it was. No, this is not the way. People have not had the doctrine of the rapture for 2,000 years. I could take you back to a guy who did it 120 years ago, 150 years ago in his kitchen. No one. This is yes, the church believed slavery was fine for a long time. In fact, the church as it existed and its divine, its manifest destiny, its divine peace was fine with colonization, was fine with slavery, was fine with slaughtering the innocent. No, Christianity has not always been
On the right
this or
side,
that.
yeah, or on the.
Of course, and let me see. I'm going to do something that I don't ever do. I'm going to step away from this for a second.
Okay. Matt's grabbing something off of the shelf. We're still here. Don't think you lost your internet connection. Can't wait to see what he pulls. He has his headphones off, so he can't hear me right now because he's grabbing a book.
I know that was awkward.
No, I did a play-by-play of.
All right. Yaroslav Pelikan or Pelican.
Jaroslav, and then last name is Pelikan.
All right. I was actually looking for a book, Christ Through the Centuries. All right.
Okay.
He's done an expansive 4-volume set on the history of the creeds. All right. He's done a piece on the Bible. Whose Bible is it anyway? A short history of the scriptures, how they came to be, all the different approaches and canonical devices we have. But in his book, Christ Through the Centuries, each chapter takes the popular view of Jesus of that century for 19 centuries. And they're all different. They all highlight a different aspect of Jesus of Nazareth. It might be Christ, the cosmic Christ, this piece. It may be Jesus of Nazareth at this piece. It may be more mystical in this spot. It may be more kingship and leader like in this part. But the whole point he shows through church history with tons of supporting evidence that just I don't think can be trifled with or ignored or contradicted is that the view of God is the same, but it's constantly being nuanced and changed according to our circumstances or context. So if you see that that's unraveled, Jesus is famous. Who do you say that I am?
Mm-hmm.
If that's changed large, there's a bit of permission for us to do the same. And if we take the best of each of those pieces and build a composite off of that, then we have a better understanding of who Christ is than if we just stay with our one clan or our one denomination or our one contextual look. And the truth of the matter is why Christianity is exploding in the way it is right now is by and large, you just weren't aware of that history.
When you say it's exploding the way it is right now, what do you mean by that?
I mean, in the fact that
in one way, that's growth, right? And then in the other way, it's
there's a
breaking
huge
apart.
disruption. So Phyllis Tickle calls it the Great Emergence.
Yep.
Every 500 years, the church goes through a rummage sale, right? Where it takes everything out, looks at it again. Okay. Well, even 500 years ago, you didn't really have a printing press. So when we're talking about that happening where people are taking out everything and they're relooking at creeds, they're relooking ideas, they're relooking at all these pieces, that was the elite. That was the literate. That was the learned. That was those with the access to the tools. Every dang person with the internet now can do that work.
Right.
You now, through nothing you've done, have access and ease to do what even 100 years ago, even 60 years ago, people had to labor to do. So it's exploding in the sense that truth is being released. It's also exploding because there is misinformation put out there.
Okay.
And all I'm saying is you have the possibility and the capability, at least in a reasoning way. This doesn't really change in your actions and your feelings, but a reasoning way, you have more access to information than you've ever had before. And that is a, if you're still clinging to, I'm doing this because this is what I was taught, that's going to put you at odds with folks who are like, oh God, I'm exploring it for myself.
Right. And not for the sake of finding out what's right and what's wrong, but
It's just
your journey.
your journey.
And let me say this, because I think this will set up one of our next conversations. When I say that the belonging and inclusivity piece was the start of yours, and you touched on this, but I want to clarify. I know it wasn't the start of yours, but I think it was the one that caused the most when you got to that piece.
Sure.
That's what caught. Listen, if you wanted to argue 7-day creation, if you wanted to argue big whatever,
No,
nobody. That's okay. We'll give you the room on that.
it was the hot button.
The hot button that all of a sudden perked up the ears, raised the eyebrows, whatever. That was the one when you touched on that. It touched a raw nerve with a lot of people.
Sure.
And it's a deal breaker for people. Like they'll go back and forth on, pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib. They'll go back and forth on all church doctrine.
So that's not even, I mean,
but you know what I'm saying? Like
I do. Pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib is having to do with eschatology and the end of time and whether or not we're going to be raptured before it all hits, the shit hits the fan, or during it, or after it's done.
I love that you took the side of explaining something that I said, and your explanation had the word eschatology in it. So for those of you who don't know what pre-trib, mid-trib, let me clarify. It's eschatology.
I did say it's end times as well.
Apocalyptical. You said the word. Well, you always have that vocabulary, but yeah, that's hilarious. But I think, and we've had this request that when people ask, that when we get the comments and questions, that's been one where people are touching on, hey, can you guys talk about the inclusivity, the LGBTQ plus IA?
We will.
And we will, and we're planning to do that. And so know that that's in the works. But yeah. No,
All right.
This is good.
Can I get real serious for a minute, and then can we end on a light note, please?
Yes. This was heavy.
It's about to get heavier for a minute.
And let me say this. I know we say this every week, but coming into today, we had no discussion on what are we going to talk about. We don't have these outlines. And so we're really trying to go through this in a public space for those of you, especially for those of you who are asking these questions.
Yeah, today was a little different in the sense that we actually shared some of the comments that we got with each other, but we didn't really talk how we were going to address some of those
right.
But we did say, hey, what was being asked of you this week, or that kind of thing. Sometimes it comes through the Whistle Pig and the Bear stuff, and sometimes it's a DM on Facebook or Instagram to Steve or me personally. But okay, I did want to say this today though.
Okay.
And this is for those of you out there. One of the things that the church does a really shitty job doing and talking about is mental health issues. And I've referenced it. I've mentioned it. I mean, I even talked about it on this cast that I come from a family with mental health maladies, and I myself have been diagnosed bipolar and have been on medication and in therapy. Thanks. Shout out to my man John, who I see. It's another John.
That
I see most Thursdays from 4 to 5 on Zoom. He's my counselor.
So if
Shout
Matt doesn't answer your call on
Yeah.
Thursday from 4 to 5.
shout out to Frank, my psychotherapist. Shout out to I can just keep yeah, I need a constellation of mental health people to keep me going.
Good.
But we don't talk about that a lot. And this past week, I was approached with a young man at the high school, 15 years old. His name was Aiden. And Aiden's mom had passed away last year. So, I mean, just being a teenager sucks in many ways. But he was going through stuff. But through all that, even when he was in alternative school or whatever, he would find a way to get out and brighten people's day. He was playful. He was fierce. He was a dude with great curiosity. And last week he approached me and, Mr. Hewitt, I heard on the street that you taught philosophy and psychology. And I said, yeah, I've done that. And he says, man, yeah, I knew I liked you. That's what I want to do with my life. And I'm like, okay, where do I start? And I try to start people in a book. And Bill Wade, if you're listening to this, you know, Sophie's World, which is kind of a novel slash treatment of Western philosophy. And so he said, do you have a copy? And I'm like, I got tons of copies. I just don't know where they're at. So I went home that night and I looked for it. I couldn't find it. And as you know, it's my wife's play season, so I don't have a lot of time. So I just went online and ordered him one. And I saw him again Friday night at the play. He was there seeing his boys and girls in the musical. And I said, hey, man, I think your book came in today, but I wasn't able to get home. I got the notification on my phone. Long story short, I get to the office when I'm here taping for this last week. Package was here. So Monday morning, I'm bringing it in, fully expecting he and I to start scheduling times to read through it. And we get all the staff and faculty of the high school gets called in at 7:45. Hey, we're meeting downstairs at this time, which is really odd. And without any details, Aiden had died, taken his life the night before, Sunday night. So I was at his funeral, spoke at it yesterday, and again, I just want to say to you, if you've got reoccurring thoughts that you can't break away from, if you've got any kind of suicidal ideation going on, don't try to just pray it away.
Right.
Don't try to cast it out only. Get some help. Tell some other people. Don't try to shoulder it on your own. Church has done a really poor job at demonizing folks with mental health issues, whether it's post-traumatic stress, whether it's chemical imbalances, whether it's
Addiction.
use. Please just don't retreat into those things. Don't hide them. And I know you don't want to necessarily let all that out, but call on somebody. I just stood there with the book in my hand, thinking if the kid would only have called me. And I hadn't given him my number. He wasn't actually a student of mine, so he didn't have my number in the syllabus in that. I could have easily have just given him my cell phone number and said, but I had no idea. I really didn't. Another reason for spiritual friendship is Steve will tell you, if I find myself in a bad pattern, I'll call Steve. I'll call a couple other people and I'll say, I need you to check in on me for the next 24, 48 hours, just because I got these weird thoughts coming in my head. And just check in on me, and they do. And I know that's heavy, but I just wanted to get it out there that
Dude, I'm sorry. That's a heavy. I mean, you've just been interacting with him, and
and having all that, and then everything
Yeah.
that goes with that.
So anyway, there's so much, and here's the crazy part: is that kid, when everybody was talking about him yesterday, they just kept saying how much joy he brought everyone else.
Hmm.
And sometimes the people who are bringing joy to everybody else are hurting on the inside, and the reason they're bringing joy to everybody else is because they're
So
dealing
true.
with their own stuff. So don't just assume everybody's got their shit together. Love on one another. Ask hard questions. How you doing mentally, yo? How's your feelings? What's going on? You know, I love you and I care for you. No judgment. I just want to be there.
That was us last Sunday when I sent you the lyrics to say something, and within a few minutes, you picked up the phone and called, and picked up the phone doesn't have the meaning that it used to with
Not at
all
all.
phones. But yeah, you called and said, "Hey, I'm heading to lunch. Are you okay?" And then a couple hours later, you checked back in, and so we've got to have each other in our lives.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in times of deconstruction or other things.
Oh
like that.
yeah.
Anyway, let's go light. North Carolina or Duke today?
Oh, Coach K's last one. I gotta go. I gotta go with the legend. So yeah, I gotta go with Duke. I'll say Duke by. I don't know. You think it goes into overtime, or do you think it's a blowout? What do you think? And who do you pick?
I think a new legend is born today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think North Carolina and their new coach are going to take it. I think they got a taste of it in Cameron. I think that they're sneaky, scary, athletic, and they're long and can defend in ways again, this is not my expertise. I love to watch basketball. I'm much more a pro
Football, yeah.
basketball,
Pro basketball.
pro basketball and football. It's reverse for me. It's college football
Football.
is I'm much more interested in than professional football, but I'm much more interested in professional basketball than I am college
Got it.
basketball. Anyway, but I can appreciate a good rivalry. And I don't think there's another rivalry in basketball like North Carolina and Duke. It's not as big a deal as football because again, you play each other multiple times, right?
But it can also set up the storyline of
We can.
they got their revenge on it. So yeah, and I grew up in Virginia, and people cheered for UVA during the Ralph Sampson era, and you cheered for UVA and whoever was playing Chapel Hill. So in that on that note, yeah, I think I have a bias against Chapel Hill. So even though I work in the UNC system, so
hey, PTI got me yesterday. I don't know if you saw it.
Pardon the interruption.
Pardon the interruption. They started with a lengthy 4 or 5 minute segment on Coach K was stepping down immediately to take the stress off of his players and to let his new guys going after him to possibly win it and it become his thing. He doesn't have to follow in his footsteps, that kind of thing.
You're going with it.
Well, they're not just announcing it; they're arguing it back and forth. It's
nice.
It's
like
Michael Wilbon and Frank Izzoli, fill in Frank, and anyway, they got me good. And I was sitting there going, "For real? This is dumb." Which was what one of them was saying. It was like, "This is stupid." And anyway, they got me good. So,
and then they drop it.
Yeah, then it's like Frank's like, he made me do it. April Fools, and they flashed it on the TV screen, all that stuff. But anyway,
I wonder if you had a lot of people rushing to make bets in that moment. Yeah,
maybe they cost some people some money.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on with you. This is the last weekend of the Willy Wonka production. I'm preaching tomorrow on creation care.
That's unrelated to Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka is just in production. Yeah.
Creation
care, Willy Wonka.
I got a meeting with a friend. I know Maggie, I think, listens to us sometimes. Her husband's dad. And we're having lunch today. We're going to talk some.
Yeah.
But what's going on with you? Liv got softball?
Liv's got softball. Was supposed to have a doubleheader today. That got moved to one game. It's opening day for their
Oh.
season. So
What's the name of their league?
they're at South Little League in Winston-Salem. And their uniforms, Liv, I think, has had every color uniform. And this year they're all black.
What are they
And
called?
And I'm trying, and they're trying to come up with their name today. And so I'm like,
They don't have a name yet?
no, because here's why: is growing up, usually in this area, a league. So let's say South Little League would have multiple teams,
Right.
six teams that they. Well, with the girls softball, they're the only team in the league, and so they travel across a 2 to 3 county area
Oh gosh.
playing. Oh, I mean, like an hour drive one way.
Winston-Salem
which is
can't
nothing compared
field.
to travel ball.
They can't field 2 softball.
No, here's the thing. Winston-Salem has like 6 little leagues. So you have east, north, west, south, right? And so you will have 10 little league baseball teams in each one of those leagues, but only one girls softball for that age range.
Okay.
Or they'll have a developing player. The other thing too is, and this wasn't a thing when I was growing up. I don't know if it's a thing in Bryson, but these travel teams, what was called
travel
AAU, and so you'll have 6 travel teams in one area. Well, then the kids that aren't playing little league; they're playing travel ball.
Yeah, that happens here too.
So you lose those players. But yeah, so she takes after mom and dad, and she's short, small, quick. So her game is her speed. So, but
And they don't have a name
that's
yet.
going on, and they don't have a name yet.
So
They'll
what
just be
does their
called
jersey say?
South, because they will play against Northwest. They'll play against East. So it's almost what would have been little like all
They
stars.
got to be South Sluggers.
They were wanting to call themselves the Black Widows.
Wow.
So, and these
That's
these
dark
girls
for
can
middle
play. I
school
know.
kids.
And they loved it. And the other one was like, you know what a Black Widow does, right? She kills her partner and blah blah blah. And I mean, they were going all into it. I thought they were coming at it from Marvel Black Widow, but no. And these girls play like this is Liv's first year on this league because where we moved, but these girls are fierce. I mean, their chants, these girls have played together since kindergarten, and they've been cool to take Liv in, so and make her a part of the team. But yeah, so that's going on. You've still got stuff in development, so that's still going on for you. Because we didn't mention it today, but that's still in the works. So lots of good vibes, prayers your way.
Yep.
What else is going on? Oh, Liv and Keela's spring break is coming up. I think the week of the 10th, April 10th. something like that.
Ours is not next week, but the week after.
Yes, not a week from this Monday, right?
A week from this Monday.
Yeah, that's when theirs is. So
Oh,
we're going to do
where
some
y'all
local
going?
stuff. We may there's a park called Grayson Highlands up in Virginia that has wild horses, wild ponies, and you can hike on the trail, and you can actually, I think I've been up there once before. You can feed them. Liv and Keela were wanting to check it out, so we may do that. But we'll be local. So if you guys are out and
Maybe.
about traveling, head over this way.
we may sleep.
Listen, dude, I went to bed so early last night and slept until like 8:30 this morning, which usually I'm up and set up for the recording by then. Let me say this. So we did YouTube Live. I didn't share the link with anyone. So you heard us talking about YouTube Live. Well, how the heck do we find it? I'll put it in the bio, the profile next week, so that you can tune in and watch. And if we
So they weren't watching us?
no, but it was a good test.
Well, in that we failed.
No, we tested the technology to see that it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So that'll
funny.
be good. So we know, and it's still streaming us with no lag, so that's good. So yeah, so be on the lookout. Episode 13, watch for a YouTube Live link, and we're having fun with it. We're experimenting, seeing
whether we want to do Zoom conference where everybody can join on Zoom, or if we do it on YouTube Live. But yeah, we're just playing around, having fun.
All right. Well, I'm going to write a sermon.
Write a sermon. You want to take us out?
Guys,
In a
life
positive
is
way.
life's a big adventure with lots of ups and downs, peaks and valleys for those of us who live in the Appalachians. And it can be hard, and it can be fun, and oftentimes both. So don't do it alone. Find a friend. If you don't have one now, name some. Start praying for them. But reach out and love the people around you and do life together. I love you, buddy.
Love you, man.
All right. This message was brought to you by the Barnett School of Ministries, full of leaders for the next
Leaders.
generation and their new dean. Congratulations.
Congratulations to the new dean, who is also, I think, the executive vice president
That's right.
of the university. So
All right.
additional duties there. This episode brought to you by South Little League.
That's right. The Black Widows.
The Black
or
Widows.
Someone else. We don't know yet.
And lastly,
Coach.
friends named John.
Friends named John. All right.
There we go. All right,
See
dude.
ya.
I love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye. Got it. Dude, that was good. I know that was heavy. Get that. You better go get you another box of Nutty Bars. No, that was like watching you on this one was unique.
Why?
It felt like you went deeper,
Maybe.
like reflective, inside processing. You know, I think that translates in the recording.
In the video, you mean? Or
No, I mean both. The fact that, in other words, it felt like